Okay, so as much as I hate doing it this way, I kind of have to, just due to the way things are going to go. The last time I built anything remotely like this was with crossbow, and I tried filming, as I'm doing things and all that, but it just turned out to just be way too much, especially because I'm literally kind of making it up as I go along. So, unfortunately, some things are kind of already done, measured out, and all that. But I'm just going to kind of show you, as I go, what I've done. So, to start out with, I'm building the kind of trigger mechanism things. So basically it's going to function along this piece here, which is basically going to hook the string, and there's going to be a lever. This is going to be kind of sandwiched here. This line along here is where the bolt's supposed to rest. Not the bolt, the string. It's going to be a lever up here that pushes down on this spring. Going to have it like a nut or something. Just that's a piece I found that fits. Welded in to where it, stops the spring while else I think to go. So my nice thing is this is going to be one of two halves. It's going to be cut and drilled the exact same. Basically, the bolts are going to slide down along here, the space in the middle. It's going to be cut off. It's going to be cut off. That's why it's weirdly scribbled. Going to have some screws drilled and kind of have things kind of pinned in place to hold them there. Or hold this in place where it goes them down. I'm going to have a pin here with a lever that pushes down, which I still need to make. This is my handle, or the start of it at the moment. That is going to be welded in place, and it's going to be ground down and have another cross piece where my hand can hold it. Not this hand, but it's the free one at the moment. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try and give as much detail as I can, but I don't make any promises just because, yeah, this is going to be an interesting build. This is already take 2. The last one was done like a week or so ago, and it didn't work out. Did a couple projects, redesigned it. Hopefully this works. So I'm gonna go cut this part out, or just basically cut along here, flip it over, cut another chunk out, drill all of my holes, then cut that out to shape, so that way they're cut the same, have the holes drilled the same. I drill the holes first so I can stick these in and bolt it together, so that way everything stays lined up, and I don't have to worry about that later. So I'm gonna go do that and get back to you when I have some progress. Okay, so I have everything cut out and kind of placed together at the moment. That piece is not supposed to come out. Basically, my trigger sits in there. This piece will be welded in place, which holds that in place. Again, I use these so I can unscrew them and then just remove the whole thing here. Gonna have a small nut welded on here again to hold the spring in place, but I'm going to do that after I make sure everything's lined up. So basically what I have to do now is, well, essentially weld everything, weld a bar on here so that way, I have something for my hand to go, pull on. And yeah, so I'm gonna go weld that in, probably weld a couple spaces just to make sure everything's lined up, and get back to you when it's done. So, got most things welded. I still need to put a little handle on here. I'll probably do that a little bit later, but for now, it is what it is. But at the moment, everything works. Yeah, it sticks a little bit, so I might oil it just a smidge. It might take a little bit of fine-tuning in the hopefully near future, but until then, I think I'm going to start working on other things on the project to keep things moving. So, yeah, not going to lie, this is way better than the original, even though it took 3 days to do, and I'm still not quite done with it. But, yeah, so I think in the next clip, I'm going to look at some things and then show you what I'm planning on doing for the next part. So now that I have the trigger more or less completed, I added this little spacer here. Just gives it enough to where when it sits here, it has enough room for the fletchings, the bolt. Basically what I have done is just out of some plywood I had lying around, I cut out this little piece here because I mismeasured this notch. Yes, one of the spacers fell off. I accidentally didn't leave enough room for the bolt to go all the way through, so I had to build up the spacer just a little bit here. No big deal, it should work. So that way, again, the bolt doesn't slide back and forth and then jam into all this stuff. I don't know if it will, but, I don't want it to, and then have misfires and all that. You definitely do not want that on bows. So, basically, I have that spacer which will be glued on. I have this spacer here, which is kind of the main guide for the bolt. Just make sure they all stay stacked up and then slide down neatly. Then I have this, which is a couple pieces of plywood glued together. I'll have to have a little bit of space there too, just add a little extra space so everything lines up properly. which would be my front piece to hold everything separate. Basically, it's the opposite of that, but it's just kind of a placeholder. So I made sure I left enough room between here and here to where not only does the bolt, so you need to go in, have room just kind of sit, but I also have enough room if I want to put like broadheads or something on it as well, I can do that. So, yeah, that about sums it up. What I'm going to do now is glue these together and then glue together my kind of, I guess the two halves of what my barrel, I don't really want to call it a barrel, but it's kind of what it's going to be. So the arrow doesn't, fall out when it shoots and, hit me in the hand. I think at York Sprov, when he was making his original ones of these, he made one that shot like pistol crossbow bolts, and I think he had that happen to him. And, I could be wrong on that, it's been a while, but I don't know what that happened to me. So I want to make sure I have a barrel and just kind of a guide too, like a crossbow would have. Gonna have one solid one running from this notch all the way out, and then I'm gonna have one running from this end the rest of the way out as well. So I'm going to epoxy all this stuff together and epoxy at least some of those pieces together, and I will get back to you when that is done. Okay, this is just kind of a quick setup of how it's sort of gonna go. Can't speak today, too much coffee. How it's sort of gonna look. I've got everything's kind of held together. This is just extra pieces acting as kind of spacers for where the string is supposed to be. Gonna have to do something about that. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. So, basic plan is I'm also gonna build a lever that sits here and pushes down to, make sure all the bolts technically, although we're using them as arrows, since it's not really a crossbow, but they're crossbow bolts being shot out of a bow which shoots arrows. Would they still technically be bolts, or are they now arrows? That's actually not relevant whatsoever. Either way, they actually basically will slide down here. I have had an issue with them twisting a little bit, but I'll come up with something. But essentially, this will be how they'll go. They'll have a whole stack of them. And yeah, I still have a lot of gluing together because at the moment, it's held together by clamps and gravity. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I also just need to weld on something there to where I can actually pull the string back, because the bow I have is a 50-pound draw weight recurve. I don't want to be holding it with a like ½ inch on either side. So at this point, beyond making the lever, it's essentially constructed. I just have to assemble everything, make sure everything stays together. And of course build a lever to pull everything down. I'll probably have a pair of, similar way to the crossbow, I'll probably have like a pair of springs or something like pulling down. Although what I'm looking at, since I have a ton of space on the top, I could probably, I'm pulling down the outside as opposed to the inside like the crossbow had. But again, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. So I'm going to start gluing pieces together and get back to you when they're done. But so far, so good. I got the glue all dried up. The main part is actually together. Hopefully this works. I have noticed one issue of right here where it catches the string. There's a little gap here and the string likes to catch that as it goes through. So I was gonna put a piece of aluminum here to like kind of guide it up, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think I might just file that down a little bit, maybe. I think that might work. I'll look at it, I'll tell you when I'm done what I decide with. But now what I need to do is make like a spacer up here to also help everything together so I don't have an arrow flying off to the side. And then just make an arm that pushes the whole thing down. So I will get back to you when I have those two things completed.